and today we're going to make my favorite thing in the world. As far back as I can remember, one of the favorite things I've ever eaten is French onion soup. You can get it in a can, you can get it in a restaurant, but the best French onion soup is homemade. And today, I'm going to teach you how. To make a good French onion soup, the secret is to have good onions, number one. I use about 6 onions in my batch. I use yellow onions. I don't like the sweet onions for the onion soup. It just makes it too sweet. The second ingredient you're going to need for your French onion soup is garlic. Garlic is one of the best things on earth. Goes good on bread, goes good in soup. You can do anything with it. Next item, bay leaves. You're going to need 2 bay leaves. That just adds some flavor. And another herb that I like to add is fresh thyme. So far, I've spent $2 on the onions. The garlic was like 50 cents. I already had bay leaves, and the thyme was $2.99. So far, I'm at about $6, $7. Next thing, you're just going to need a little bit of salt, about 2 tablespoons, 2 containers of beef broth. It really doesn't matter which beef broth you use. They're all pretty much the same store variety. If you can make it yourself or get it homemade from a butcher or something like that, it's much better, but this does just fine. You're gonna need 2 of these, and these are usually on sale for about 2 for $5, and that brings your cost up to about $11. And the last ingredient you're gonna need for your French onion soup is some kind of wine or cooking sherry. I just happen to have this sherry cooking wine because I don't really drink, so I just got a bottle of this, and you use about this much each time, and that's just to caramelize the onions. And the secret to the French onion soup is really just browning the onions and getting a good caramelization. I'm also going to show you some tricks I've learned by watching other videos. I'm not a chef, I'm self-taught. I like to watch videos on YouTube, and I've watched about 8 or 10 different French onion soup recipes to come up with this recipe. I'm going to show you some tricks here that I've learned from watching those other videos. Let me just make some room here. The first thing I like to do is put on a pair of gloves. I've already washed my hands, but the gloves, I don't want my hands smelling like onions and garlic, so I get these vinyl gloves like I used to wear when I worked in restaurants. Now, an onion has 2 ends. You have your fuzzy end and the other end. When you're cutting an onion, you want to keep the fuzzy end intact. The first thing you want to do, well, you want to have a nice sharp knife. This is just a standard chef's knife. It's got a nice metal tang all the way through. And when you're holding a chef knife, something I've learned from watching chefs on TV, you want to grab it like you're shaking hands with it. You don't want to put your finger up here. There's a show where you might get a red line drawn down your finger if you put your finger up like this. But the first thing you want to do is just cut off the end of the onion. Just like that. This part is trash. Then, notice I have not peeled the onion yet. The reason I have not peeled the onion yet is because I don't want to start crying. This method that I'm going to show you prevents most tearing up because you're minimizing the cuts to the onion. So, what I'm going to do is called julienning the onion, which basically just means thin strips. Now, I've put my onion flat, and the next step is to cut the onion right down the center. So I've got my knife blade right in the middle of the hairy part of the onion. I'm going to hold the blade and let the blade do the work. So now I've made a nice perfect cut right down the center of the onion. A few pieces of the skin might fall off. That's okay. I have a trash can here. You just throw those away. Now, you're left with a nice little onion like this. You may notice that there's a root or something growing right through the center here. This part is no good. This part here is not what you want in your French onion soup. So what I like to do is take my knife, find this part, and then go to the root and cut straight down on the corners, just like that, and cut that furry part off. This will come out, and now my onion is ready to be peeled. It's hollowed out the center. I don't have that hairy part anymore. And when I go to peel my onion, you'll notice an onion has several layers. The first layer is just the skin. The second layer is a layer of the actual onion, but that layer is kind of stringy and it's not what you want in your onion soup. So what I do is just peel that layer off. Now, I'm left with a nice, perfect onion, ready to be sliced up and julienned. So let me clean off my little station here. We'll do the same thing real quick with the other one. Simply pop that down, pull out the center, and peel the skin and the top layer of the onion right off. You're left with a nice, beautiful onion. So I'll set those aside. And when I go to cut my onion, I'm going to cut the onion along, see how the onion has the layers there? What we want to do is make as thin a slice as possible down the onion, about that big, about 3 millimeters, 2 millimeters. So the way we do that is we put our onion down and we put our point of our knife into the cutting board. Not in the cutting board, but laying up against the cutting board. And we just do a rocking motion like this. We don't put our finger up, we just rock. And as we're doing that, we want to have our fingers like this, curled back, so that we have a guard. You can rest the knife up against your fingers, and if they're curled back, that'll protect them. So you might see some people on TV that go shh real fast. I can't do that. But if you're just nice and slow, you just make your first cut, put your fingers as a guard, let the knife do the work, and you're just going to slice straight down as you're pushing the onion over. You're going to come up with some nice uniform cuts, which is very important. Everything cooks at the same time if it's cut uniformly. So there you'll see I've cut this perfect onion into slices that come apart into these perfect julienne pieces, which are exactly what you want for your French onion soup. Pieces just like this, uniform size and shape. What more could you ask for? We'll put these in a bowl and cut up the rest. Okay, and this is what you wind up with, a nice big bowl of onions. And this is what you wind up with, a big bowl of onions. And it may look like a lot, but once you start cooking them, these will reduce down, and this will be the perfect amount. The next item you need for your French onion soup is garlic. This is a whole clove, or a whole head of garlic. We need about 4 cloves. So we're just gonna break this off. Find 4 nice fresh cloves of garlic in here. And the way I've learned to deal with garlic is if you take a big knife and just kind of push on it, it's gonna pull the garlic right out of the peel. Garlic is similar to an onion in that it has a peel, and you can just peel it right off. On the end of the garlic, you'll see there's a little brown spot. You don't have to, but I like to cut that off. It's the root there, and you're left with a little piece of garlic. I need 4 of those, so crush up a few more here. Peel these garlics. It's a little easier to peel them without your gloves on, but like I said, I don't want my hands to smell like onions, nor do I want them to smell like garlic. So the gloves just allow me to do what I need to do without worrying about that, and also helps prevent spreading any germs or anything as well. So, peel this one. And if it breaks, that's okay, don't worry, because we're just going to chop this up anyway. Sometimes you can break that little end off, which is what I did there. Okay, now you want to clear off your cutting board, get rid of all your onion petals and things like that. And to chop the garlic, we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to do the rocking back and forth motion. Some people take the time to sit here and cut it into uniform pieces. That's kind of a waste of time to me. Just keep chopping until you get nice little small pieces of garlic. That's all you need. And then we're gonna clean that off our knife and save that all for later on. That's about all the garlic you need for your soup. And that is all the prep work for your French onion soup. So, next thing we're gonna do is start to cook. All right, we're gonna use some grapeseed oil, which is what I like to use. It's similar to olive oil, but without that flavor. And let that warm up a little bit until it starts to sizzle. Coat our pan. I have my heat on high. What you can do while this is warming up is take your beef broth and put it into a stock pot that I already have set up over here. And I'll just pour that in here. You can go ahead and add in your fresh thyme and your bay leaves into that stock pot with the beef broth. Excuse my box here making some rude noises. And we're just going to put that on a low heat and let that simmer for a while. It's going to be several hours of simmering. The longer you cook it and let it simmer, the more flavors develop. So sometimes I think this soup's even better on the second or third day. But we're just going to let that, just put it on low and just let it sit. Alright, I think our oil's hot enough that we can add our onions. And we're just going to take and dump our onions right into the pot. Nice little sizzle. That means things are going good. Now you notice I did not put my garlic in yet. We're going to let the onions cook for a while before we put the garlic in. This process can take a long time. But what I want to do here in a few minutes is mix it up. So I use a long wooden spatula, for lack of a better word, and you just want to gently move them around, just to get them all coated in that grapeseed oil. What we're trying to do here is caramelize and reduce the onions. And you see how much is in here now, and you'll see how much is left. So once we get our onions nice and coated, we'll turn our heat down to medium and let this simmer for about 15 minutes unchecked. I'll put a lid on it to keep the moisture in. But before I do that, once my onions are coated, you're probably wondering where the salt comes into play. We take our salt, put that right on top of the onions, and what that's going to do is bring out the flavor, bring out the juices, bring out the water out of those onions and help them caramelize even better. So we'll mix that up, try and get everything nicely coated. Okay, now it's nicely coated. Just going to put a lid on. And that's the wrong side of the lid. When you find the right lid, there we go. You'll notice they've reduced by about half already, just in 15 minutes. They're starting to turn clear and translucent. That's exactly what we're looking for. So a little piece of the peel in there, I'll get that out. We're starting to get that nice caramelization. I'm just going to let these sit. And we'll check back in about another 10 minutes and just see where they're at. This is a long process. It takes about an hour to get your onions where. Alright, we've got some flavor. All this on the side here is flavor, so you want to make sure you get all that sugar almost there. We're going to give them another 10 minutes. Ethan, after I make this, I want you to try it. It's soup. Now we're going to add our garlic, just for the last little part of the caramelization. We'll mix that up. We have a nice brown color now. We've been stirring every 10 minutes or so for about the last 45 minutes. We're almost where we want to be. See how the flavor's building there, all this brown is just nothing but flavor. It coats the pan and we scrape it off. And just mix it up. It may look like one big blob, but once we add it to the broth, it'll be a perfect consistency and it'll all separate out into the soup. So we're going to do that another 5 minutes, and then we'll be adding our wine. Okay, we got our flavors going here. Everything's looking good. Now what I'm going to do is add my sherry cooking wine. About 1 cup. And we're going to crank the heat back up to like a medium high. Stir it up and use that wine to get all that flavor off the edge of the pan, off the bottom of the pan, and basically we're just going to reduce it down some more until all that alcohol is cooked out of the wine. But the wine brings out the flavors of the onions, brings out the flavors in the soup, and it also helps get all the flavor that is caramelized on the pan off the pan. So we'll let that simmer for another 5 minutes and check back. Okay, we are just about ready to add these onions to the broth. The darker you get them, the more flavor you have. So you may keep hearing me say flavor, flavor, flavor. I like the rich, deep flavor that this French onion soup has. So the longer you keep doing this, you could probably do it for another hour if you wanted to. And just keep breaking down the sugars in here. But I think we're at a good point here. I'll turn my heat off. And before I transfer them to the pot of liquid that I have here, my broth. Our broth simmering here. It's been simmering for about 45 minutes with our bay leaves, which is now is a good time to take those out before we add the onions to the mixture. And also take out our thyme. served its purpose. And now we're going to take our onions and transfer them into the broth. And try and get as much of that flavor out of that pan as possible. Just scoop them right in there. Scrape every last little bit you can out of that pan. Make sure you get all that flavor from around the edges. And then add that flavor to your broth. Look at that. All right, there is our French onion soup. We're gonna put a lid on that sucker and let it simmer for about a half hour. And then it'll be ready to enjoy. Make sure that you're tasting your soup as well to make sure that the flavor is where you want it. It's going to be very, very hot, so just be very careful. Rich, deep flavor. Doesn't even taste like it needs any salt. I think it is good to go. I ladled the soup into a oven-safe bowl, and now I'm going to add some croutons. You can use either French bread, like with some toasted with some garlic butter, or I like to just use store-bought croutons. You can also make your own. One thing to keep in mind though is the more crouton or bread you put in there, the more juice is going to be sucked up into that bread. So let's keep it light and just put a few in here, and that juice will soak up into the bread there. And then we're going to add a piece of Swiss cheese. There's several different kinds. I just happen to have Swiss at home, so that's what I'm using. But I like Emmentaler, Havarti. Oh, I'm sorry, not Havarti. Emmentaler, Parmesan, baby Swiss. So I'm gonna put my cheese on top, and then I also have a little bit of shredded Parmesan I'm gonna add on here as well. And then I'm gonna put this in the broiler for about 2 minutes, and we'll see how it looks. What we're trying to do here is brown the cheese, melt the cheese, and have a nice bubbly cauldron of French onion soup. So good. I would put this up against any restaurant French onion soup I've ever had. The burnt cheese around the edge of the bowl, awesome. Here's a little trick. You take your spoon, scrape along the top of the bowl to get every little bite of that crunchy cheese. Yum, yum, yum. I hope you enjoyed my first video. It took me forever. I don't know how I'm gonna edit this thing. Okay, so now you know how to make French onion soup. All you gotta do is go to the grocery store and get the ingredients. It'll cost you like 10, 12 bucks. Come home and make it. And if you don't want to buy a whole pack of cheese, go to the butcher shop. Go to the deli and ask them to cut you pieces of cheese off their big giant 5-pound cheese. They'll do it. You only gotta buy a slice per bowl. Anybody know the history of French onion soup? I'd like to learn. Onion soups have been popular at least as far back as Roman times. Throughout history, they were seen as food for poor people, as onions were plentiful and easy to grow. The modern version of the soup originates in Paris, France in the 18th century, made from beef broth and caramelized onions. Marie-Julie Glandon's Mouquin, wife of the famous restaurateur Henry Marc Mouquin, is credited with introducing onion soup into the United States in 1861. It's often finished by placing it under a grill in a ramekin. Okay, our soup is out of the oven, and then we'll transfer it to a dish to transport it because it's going to be piping hot. And we almost dropped it.